Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the last in our ultra long haul special series, where the real Airbus pilot and I are recreating real world special ultra long haul flights in Flight Sim, and with the publishing date of this video being Sunday the 25th of December 2022, a very happy Christmas to everyone. And as this will be the last video in 2022, I hope that the new year brings everyone happiness and prosperity. So we're starting today's episode at Seoul's Incheon International Airport on the 28th of March 2021 on board the Qualitywings Boeing 787-8 in the livery of Comlux Aruba for what was, at the time of editing this video, the longest passenger commercial flight ever flown. And at 20 hours and 19 minutes, it's going to be a long one. And as I prepare this Qualitywings for this ultra long haul special flight, I have to admit, because I'm pretty nervous, because all of the data being presented to me in the FMC tell me that I'm not going to make it. So unlike in the last video on board the PMDG 777-200LR between Manchester in England and Perth in Western Australia, the FMC in that aircraft was predicting between 21 and 23 tons of fuel still available when we reached Perth. However, here in the Qualitywings 787-8, the FMC is clearly telling me I won't make it. So that will remain the question as I prepare this 20 hours and 19-minute flight between Seoul in South Korea and Buenos Aires, Argentina. So jumping right into Sinbreath, we're going to be departing on one of the 3 northerly runways here at Seoul Incheon and turning left shortly after departure, avoiding DPRK airspace. From there we will cross the Korean peninsula, climbing to our initial altitude before crossing the Sea of Japan, and then overhead Japan in the direction of the Japanese capital, of course Tokyo, before heading across the expanse of the Pacific Ocean, where we'll be talking to Oakland Control in California as we skirt the southernmost extremes of the Hawaiian Island airspace, before passing into the Tahiti TIR, which is of course where we started this mini-series 3 episodes back, and we'll be arriving overhead South America near the Chilean capital of Santiago, and then crossing the Andes before starting a descent into Buenos Aires overhead Argentina. So if I ever make it to Buenos Aires in Argentina, this is going to be the longest flight I've ever taken in Flight Sim. So as I jump into the cockpit, I do want to say the following. This aircraft probably departed from one of the private terminals here at Incheon. So with real world information very sketchy on this record breaking flight, I've just taken the decision to depart from the terminal.
Pre-flight checklist. This flight. May we remind you that all seat backs and tray tables need to be in the upright position. All carry-on items brought on board must be securely stowed either under the seat in front of you or in an overhead bin. Prior to pushback from the gate, please ensure that your seatbelt is securely fastened. Personal cellular telephones may be used while parked at the gate with the main cabin door open. We will advise you when they must be turned on. For customers seated in a row of seats identified by the words "No Children This Row," please review the white safety card in the seat pocket in front of you. The use of some portable electronic devices is prohibited while on board the aircraft. Once airborne, you will be advised when the use of approved devices such as personal computers and compact disc players is permitted. A complete list of approved devices may be found in the magazine. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just closed the main cabin door. All personal cellular telephones must be turned off and stowed for the duration of the flight. Flight attendants, prepare doors for departure, cross-check, and verify straps.
Gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you aboard this flight on the Dreamliner. At this time, I'd like to direct your attention to the flight attendants while we review safety information about the 787. Your seatbelt should be fastened at this time. It is our policy that you keep your seatbelt fastened at all times while seated. The 8 exits on the 787 are marked with exit sign. Please locate the 2 exits nearest you, keeping in mind the nearest exits may be behind you. This aircraft has escape path lighting, a change in color, or an exit sign will indicate you have reached exit. Should oxygen be needed, mask will appear from the compartment above your seat. If you're traveling with someone needing assistance, put on your mask first and then offer assistance. Your life vest is located on the maintain beneath or in some cases between your seat. If needed, inflate the vest just prior to exiting the aircraft by pulling the red tab on the front vest. safety information card with more detailed instructions regarding this aircraft is in your seat pocket. This is a non-smoking flight. Smoking is not allowed in cabin or lavatories. All lavatories are equipped with smoke protection systems and cover you off against temperatures, disabling, or destroying the system. As we get ready to take off, please help us prepare the cabin by making sure all carry-on baggage is stowed, all seat backs and tray tables are upright, headrests are lowered, and footrests and video monitors are stowed. Customers are required to observe all posted and lighted information signs and adhere to crew members' instructions. Thank you for choosing to fly with us. We will be airborne shortly.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback. Locking gear. Departure check completed. Bypass pin inserted. Release parking brakes. Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Okay, starting engine.
Starting.
Set parking brakes. Ride is clear.
Comlux 788 Heavy, taxi, Bing Point 40, runway 33 left, using taxiway Alpha Sierra, Romeo 8 Alpha, Bravo, Golf, contact tower on 118.2 when ready.
As we taxi out to runway 33 left here at Seoul Incheon, it's time to tell you about the add-on scenery that I've got installed here in Prepared 3D version 4.5, and it's from Aero Designs, which I purchased from Sim Market a few years ago. And to be honest guys, it's not great scenery, and what makes it even worse is they do ask nearly €29 for it, which I think is completely overpriced. And therefore, if you're in the market for a really good version of Seoul Incheon for Prepared 3D, I'd recommend that you pop over to the Pacific Sim website and buy their version of RKSI. Right now I've got a couple of airport add-ons installed in Prepared 3D version 4.5 from Pacific Sim, and I have to admit that I'm pretty impressed with their quality. But at $35 an airport, I do accept that they are on the expensive side. Okay, we are approaching the threshold for runway 33 left here at Seoul Incheon, so it's time to get this Boeing Dreamliner into the sky.
Comlux 788 Heavy, cleared for takeoff, runway 33 left, service wind 258 at 7.
Check thrust.
Thrust set. Knots.
Checked.
V1. Rotate. V2.
Autopilot on. Flaps 1.
Flaps up.
Comlux 788 Heavy, call departure, roger, altimeter 2980.
And coach, beer, wine, and margaritas can be purchased.
Contact Korean Air, Incheon, control Comlux
As you can see, it was a pretty uneventful departure off runway 33 left at Seoul's Incheon airport. And here we are climbing eastbound towards our initial cruise altitude. And of course, the eastern coastline of the Korean peninsula.
Climb flight level 270, Comlux 788 heavy.
And flight level 270, or 27,000 feet, was our initial cruising altitude before I would check the FMC and have a look at what the optimum flight level would be at that point in time. At the point of editing this video, it has been 14 years since I visited South Korea in the real world, and flying over these mountains in the virtual world just to the east of Seoul makes me want to go back. Anyway, back to today's flight and checking out the FMC as we reached flight level 270. You can see on the flight management computer an optimal of 350 and a recommended of 370, or 37,000 feet. And for avoidance of doubt, I chose the optimal 350. As you can see, guys, as I crossed the coastline of South Korea, I requested the higher cruise level of flight level 370, or 37,000 feet. And less than an hour after crossing over the South Korean coastline, we were overhead Japan. But our crossing of Japan would last less than an hour as we made our way from the west coast to the east coast. But in that 1 hour that we crossed Japan, the sun was beginning to set. And as I faced the longest oceanic crossing in all my years of flight simming, this would be the first of 2 sunsets before we would see landfall.
Japan Air 8942, turn left heading 800.
Approximately between the 4 and 5 hour mark, while transiting the Hawaiian TIR while talking to Oakland Control in California, the FMC was telling me that it was time to climb to flight level 390, or 39,000 feet. However, the picture was still very bleak because the FMC was telling me that I still didn't have enough fuel to make our destination in Buenos Aires. So keep watching, guys, and you will see what happens as we transit the Tahiti TIR at a much higher altitude. But before reaching Tahiti airspace, while still communicating with Oakland Control in California, it would soon be time to climb to flight level 410. And in the real world, this would be done using data link. And guess what, guys? At 41,000 feet, while communicating with Tahiti Air Traffic Control, when I checked the depressing fuel situation on the FMC, it was starting to show that I would have 1 ton of fuel left when we arrive in Buenos Aires. Things were looking up. And as we transited the Tahiti TIR, the centre tank finally ran dry. And it was at this point that the FMC started to give me hope that we would actually make it to Buenos Aires with just under 7 tons of fuel on board. And it was during these ultra long haul special flights that I started to really work out that the difference between the PMDG and the Qualitywings is this level of detail. Because on our last flight in the Boeing 777-200LR of PMDG, the aircraft predicted the final fuel load on arrival to within 2 tons of the actual final fuel load on arrival, and the PMDG Boeing predicted that for the entire duration of the flight, which of course is what you would expect in the real world. Anyway, as you can see, our entire day flying overhead the Pacific Ocean was coming to an end as day was turning back into night. And it was at this point, while communicating with Tahiti ATC, that we'd be making our final step climb to flight level 430 or 43,000 feet. And I have to admit that I was extremely surprised when we actually made landfall in South America overhead the Chilean capital of Santiago. And it wasn't long until we were making our initial descent into Buenos Aires Ezeiza International Airport, where we would be vectored to land on runway 17. And this was going to be an interesting one because runway 17 doesn't have an ILS, so I'd be making an RNAV approach into runway 17 in pretty low visibility condition, which for me is going to be a first on the channel. So after managing to cross nearly the entire Pacific Ocean without running out of fuel, my last challenge would be making an RNAV approach into runway 17 in not great visibility at night.
Ladies and gentlemen, in preparation for landing, please return all seat backs and tray tables to their upright and stowed position. Ensure all portable electronic devices are turned off and stow all carry-on items. Additionally, footrest and video monitors must be returned to their original position. Thank you.
Approaching minimums. Minimums. 200. $100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
For the next few minutes, so please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened until the captain turns off the fasten seatbelt sign. At that time, please remember to check around your seating area, in the seat pockets, and overhead bins for all personal belongings that you brought on board. Please take care when opening the overhead bins, as the contents may have shifted during flight.
Welcome to Ezeiza International Airport in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And around 20 and a half hours earlier, I really didn't think I was going to make it. Anyway, we're here now, and the scenery that you're seeing here from Buenos Aires Ezeiza International Airport is from Tropicalism. And for those of you who followed the channel for a while, you will know that I've got quite a few airports from Tropicalism. And in my opinion, their scenery isn't the best you can find for prepared, but it's not the worst either, and therefore I do think they offer pretty good value for money. Again, I'm pretty sure this private flight, even though it's in a 787, would probably be taxiing to some sort of private FBO. So please just accept that I'm using my imagination here in the Flight Sim virtual world, and therefore I'm going to taxi to the terminal. And as here, we're going to bring another episode of Sim Sunday to a close. But I'm also sorry to say that this is probably going to be the last video on the channel. As we made our way through 2022, the Real Airbus pilot had received a promotion in work and was travelling a lot more, which meant when he was home, he wanted to spend a lot more time with the family rather than flying a flight sim. It was a bit of a busman's holiday for him. And as for myself, the Sunday pilot, well, my work has got a lot busier as we exited the pandemic. And that means I'm travelling a lot more, including far too many transatlantic business trips throughout 2022. And to give you an example of what it takes to produce one of these videos, this flight took me around 5 hours to fly, accelerating the flight sim when I was not recording video. And when done, this edit will have taken me nearly 4 hours, so for 9 hours in total. To produce a Sim Sunday video is simply no longer possible in 2023 due to our workload. And the Real Airbus pilot and I are acutely aware that the big interest currently in the sim world is of course with Microsoft Flight Simulator, which neither of us are currently flying in our virtual worlds, because even throughout 2022 we believe it doesn't offer a realistic environment for tubeliner flying. Anyway guys, that is it for me. We've pulled up to the gate here at Buenos Aires Ezeiza International in the Qualitywings 787-8. Thank you very much for watching, and wherever you're flying in your virtual world, don't forget to fly safe.